hazard warning. Entering contaminated zone. Transmissions jammed.
What's going on, Agent Sly here, and thanks for checking out another Division video. You know, it is early Saturday morning, and that means new weapons are to be had all over New York City. So let's take a tour of all the weapon vendors in the game in search for that God roll. Now, since these tend to run a bit longer than I usually want them to, let's just go ahead and get right on with it. It's Saturday, December 17th, and this is your Division Weekly Weapon Restock Guide. Hope everyone's weekend turns out to be awesome, and if it's on par with what we have here this week, then I'll be pretty damn good. While only a few weapons are really amazing, there are tons of them out there that have pretty good rolls. In contrast to last week, where pretty much everything sucked, this week is a completely different story. Speaking of different, I finally got off my ass and pounded out my PC character to endgame and bring him all the way up to 256. I usually play on the Xbox, but the PC is definitely starting to call to me. While this guy does have decent gear, my selection is pretty terrible and I'm far from optimized. But so far, this guy seems to have way better RNG luck than my Xbox character, so hopefully that'll give him an edge. Anyways, this is my first weapon restock on PC, so let's get to it. Alright, well, first let's start up with the base of operations and, of course, heading over to the armory first. Alright, well, we have the usual weapons up top here. Let's go ahead and skip those, and let's start with the new ones for the week. Alright, well, starting us off, PX4 Storm, 1.3 million light zone credits, as with most sidearms, comes with Expert and Intense. Nothing great, but like I always say, there's tons of sidearms out there. Why buy one? Moving along, a Tactical Vector 45 ACP. Just like all the other primaries, it's about 1.7 million light zone credits, 32% critical hit damage with Unforgiving, Self-Preserved, and Dominant. While not terrible, it's not great either, and definitely hold off, guys, because there is an awesome Vector coming along here shortly. Alright, next up, one of my top 3 weapons in the game, the lightweight M4. 18% enemy armor damage, 850 rounds per minute with 30 in the mag. As far as talents go, we have Skilled, Predatory, and Capable. Unfortunately, this M4 didn't get blessed from the gods. Nonetheless, even a crappy M4 is still a decent weapon, if that makes any sense. But there is something similar later on that is way better than this, so again, just like the Vector, hold off. So, moving along, we have an SASG Shoddy, 346.5% stagger, 180 rounds per minute with 7 in the mag. Talents, Trained, Adept, and Sustained. Now, just like sidearms, guys, SASGs and shotguns in general are pretty much everywhere, so I buy one. Next, a Surplus SVD, 156% headshot damage with Commanding, Predatory, and Disciplined. Again, there's another one later on in the video that is way better. And finally, the last weapon at the armory, a military MK46. 14% damage out of cover, a low 550 rounds per minute with 100 in the mag, and it comes with Meticulous, Determined, and Deadly. While in a much better place than a few months ago, a lot of LMGs need some heavy modding to become good, either raising the RPMs or going for the crit hit chance only. While the MK46 is one of the better, larger mag LMGs, they're still not really worth an inventory slot, at least not yet in my opinion. Okay, well, we're done here, guys. Next stop, we're going downstairs into the terminal to see our old friend, the special equipment vendor. So let's pop in over here and see what's up. Alright, so skipping the usuals, let's hit the first new weapon of the week, which is my favorite sidearm, the First Wave X45. About 1k Phoenix credits, 625 rounds per minute, 15 in the mag. The First Wave X45 naturally has a larger clip than the normal X45, so mag mods will benefit from the First Wave more so than the plain versions. Talents are pretty good, Expert and Destructive. You know, as far as the sidearm goes, it really doesn't get much better than this. Again, don't waste your money on it though, but it's definitely a good sidearm. Next up, another First Wave, and this time it's a Vector 45 ACP, and this is the beast I talked about earlier. Pretty decent critical hit damage at 34%. 750 rounds per minute with 25 in the mag. Talents are where this thing shines. Fierce, Swift, and Brutal. Just shy of a God roll, but this can be turned into a God roll pretty freaking quick. Depending on how you like your setup, you can go for Deadly, Vicious, Responsive. All would be great choices and very easy to apply. This is definitely the first buy of the week, and the second comes right below it. we have an LVOA-C. Unfortunately, it starts off with low armor shred at only 18%, but talents definitely make up for it. We have vicious, deadly, and destructive. If this was 22% armor shred, then a more perfect weapon would be hard to find. Now, I'm not sure where it sits in terms of its damage roll, if it sits, on the higher or lower end of its possible max, but either way, this is a great weapon, and pretty much it's the same thing as all the other M4s, like a lightweight, the police. This weapon is up there in the same category, and while it may have a little less stability than the other M4s, it's nothing crucial and can be easily controlled. This is an awesome weapon right here, guys. Too bad the Vector didn't have these talents as well, but definitely this is probably my buy of the week out of everything here. Alright, well, moving along, we have a Super 90 sub 300% stagger with commanding, unforgiving, and dominant. Blah. Next, some more blah, a classic M44. It has a decent 157% headshot damage, talents, sustained, talented, and competent. And then finally, at the end here, we have a military L86 LSW, 13% damage out of cover, halfway decent talents, competent, unforgiving, and accurate. Nothing I'd buy, that's for sure, and there is another better LSW a little bit later on as well. Alright guys, well, moving along here, a couple of quick mentions. A pretty awesome Gunslinger's vest down here at the bottom for 832 Phoenix credits. It is electronics, so it would need to be rerolled, but it has robust as its talent, which is pretty great. Added armor, damage to elites, and then extra ammo. Pretty decent chest piece, guys. And moving along, if you picked up that LVOA-C, then there is an awesome suppressor down here that would fit that beautifully. It has critical hit chance, critical hit damage, as well as stability. This would be a great fit. And that about does it, guys. But before we head over to the DZ, the Blueprints guy is selling the converted USC blueprint. So if you want to make that perfect USC, then this is definitely your chance. It runs for a little over 900 Phoenix credits, so time to hit some HVTs if you're a little short. And that wraps us up here at the base of operations, guys. Next stop, over to the Dark Zone, and also I made a complete circle around the DZ, going into each checkpoint to see what was for sale, and I'll show you all those along with each safe house after we get through this DZ mess. Alright guys, well, let's head inside and check it out. So first up, a 1911 for 333,000 DZ dollars. Expert and responsive are its talents, which are pretty good, but again, it's a sidearm. Moving along, converted SMG-9. A low 29% critical hit damage. Talents are adept, commanding, and fierce. Fierce is the open talent as well, so this does have the bones to be decent. Switching out commanding for deadly, you'd have yourself a pretty decent little SMG. By the way, I'm always surprised how deadly these little SMGs are, man. The converted SMG-9 is really no joke. If you have the right one and you're close enough, it's pretty beast. Alright guys, next up, the Tactical MK16. Again, low armor shred at 18%. This one is 625 rounds per minute with 30 in the mag unmodded. This one is the actual full auto rifle, not the 3 burst. A lot of people seem to get this one mixed up. Talents are talented, swift, and meticulous. Decent, but again, a pass. So, trucking along here, we have a double-barreled sawed-off, 315% stagger. Talents, pretty decent as well, responsive, commanding, and meticulous. But again, it's a sidearm, don't buy it. And next, a beastly police MK17. These have come a long way, haven't they, guys? 169% headshot damage, which is pretty up there. 275 rounds per minute, 20 in the mag. It has low stability, so you can't spam the trigger while staying accurate downrange, but everything else is pretty solid. Talents, competent, cool-headed, and accurate. If you end up changing cool-headed to capable, or the perk where you get higher damage if you're more than 30 meters from the target, by the way, I'm drawing a blank for some reason on what that is, but anyway, that would bring this weapon into the next level. If you can control the bounce down range, then this weapon is very powerful. Alright, finally, another military M60 E4 bringing up the rear here. A low 12% damage out of cover with self-preserved, sustained, and deadly. While not too bad, the M60 just doesn't really do it for me. Alright agents, well that wraps up the DZ for this weekend, and since these videos are becoming increasingly huge, I'm just going to show you all the quick versions and what's relevant in the remaining areas. When a decent weapon pops up, I'll slow it down to talk about it. Alright, well, let's do this. The outer circle of safe houses, starting at the crypt, a decent tactical SASG, 330.5% stagger with fierce on it, so not too bad, could be made into something pretty great. The Grindhouse is up next, a decent military Scar H, which is the marksman rifle version, a low 144% headshot damage, but it does have ferocious, deadly, and toxic. All pretty good talents, and I actually like toxic. But of course, brutal would be a much better choice. So one reroll could turn this into a great DMR. Moving along, we're heading to the last call, and again, another decent weapon, the Tactical AUG. A modest 33% critical hit damage with commanding, brutal, and deadly. All you'd have to do here is switch commanding for fierce, and boom, G to G. Although the requirements could be a different story. So after a quick division crash, we're back to the meat locker. Pretty sure it's something to do with DX12, but anyway, nothing much here. A mediocre custom M44. Next, Camp Hudson, where that decent L86 I talked about earlier is. So, this custom L86, 14% damage out of cover with some decent talents. Deadly, accurate, and prepared, and that was what I was trying to think of earlier. Prepared. Anyway, it wouldn't be too useful here. 30 meters is pretty far away for an LMG, so responsive, fierce, vicious, brutal, all of those would be great reroll choices, and it's the open talent as well, so you'll be able to use whatever you choose. Alright, next up, Kerman Station is next. Nothing impressive here. Another SASG, so let's keep it moving over to the Wolves Den with another L86. This one is not as good as the previous one at Hudson. It has brutal, meticulous, and talented. Alright, well that wraps up all of the safe houses in New York City, and the DZ checkpoints did have a few decent weapons, but most of them were just repeats of a handful of weapons, mostly the military MK46, so that's nothing worth buying. However, there are two places of interest this week. The first is the checkpoint on West 29th Street, the entrance to the DZ weapon vendor. There's a police UMP45 for sale, and I urge some of you out there to try it, so that way you guys can all verify my claim that the UMP is utter boo-boo McShitty. 31% critical hit damage, 600 rounds per minute, 30 in the mag. Talents are adept, unforgiving, and ambusher. The converted USC is a much better choice, which you can get here on East 34th Street vendor. It has 35% critical hit damage with way better overall damage, but only slightly faster fire rate, also a little less bullets. Talents, skilled, deadly, and ambusher. It's not as good as a few other SMGs that are out there already, but it's way better than the UMP. And besides a few more LMGs, a shotgun, another sidearm, the other DZ vendors don't offer all that much. But rejoice, guys, because we are done. Now, ever since they expanded all these weapon vendors, the video has becoming increasingly long, so I'll try to keep them cut as short as possible while still trying to show you guys everything available. But that about does it, agents. One last thing is that the special DZ vendor in DZ6 has pretty much a God roll Alpha Bridge vest. Over 3k in armor with high stamina, extra armor, protection from elites with added ammo capacity. This is definitely an awesome roll, and Alpha Bridge, that's never a bad idea. But enjoy, ladies and gentlemen. This reset is 10 times better than any that I can remember within the last couple months, so soak it up while you can. As always, thank you guys so much for watching and for the support of my small channel here. If you want to stay in touch and up to date on everything coming out of my channel or anything Division, Destiny, or Mass Effect related, follow me on Twitter at SlyNation. Could not do this without you all, and have an awesome weekend. Happy holidays, everyone, and until next time, this is your boy Sly. Later, guys.